Hey everyone, welcome back to Learn Frontend, and today we're going to be building our very first fully designed and specced out portfolio. So this is how it's going to look, guys. We're going to have two call to action buttons right here. One will view your resume, one will view your projects. You're going to have a nice image here with a little transform scale effect. We're going to have some text here. We're going to have some nav links right here. And as you guys can see, if you notice, we actually have hover effects making the color slightly lighter, and I'm going to show you guys how to do all that. We're going to have a button hover effect right here. This will basically take you to, per se, your email or wherever you want to direct, and then we're going to have either your logo or your name up here just like this. So very simplistic, minimalistic design on a portfolio, but we're going to make it look really good. So let's get straight into it, and we're going to drag the screen over here. We're going to bring VS Code here, and if you don't already know how to do it, we're going to open a folder. So we'll go to our desktop. We'll call this my new portfolio, just like that, and we will select into that folder. Awesome stuff. Now, what do we do first? Well, let's make an index.html. We're going to press exclamation mark and we're going to hit enter, and the title of this can be Zach's portfolio, or whatever your name is, portfolio. Awesome. And now we can actually open this with live server over here. Cool. And we'll just put in some basic text. Hi. Yep, that's working. Cool. Don't know what this is. We can delete that. Alright, so we've got our little text here. Now what we need to do is we need to obviously add a CSS file. So we'll call this index.css. We'll set some global styles, color blue, just to make sure. So this is not blue yet, obviously. We haven't linked it up. Link rel style sheet, index.css. And that's actually gone blue. You can't really tell, but we'll make it pink. Might be a bit easier to tell. Yeah, cool. So that's all set up properly. So let's start with some global styles for now. What our global styles are going to be is padding 0, margin 0, box sizing border box, and we're going to actually set a font family. So if we haven't used Google Fonts yet, let's show you how to do that. Google Fonts, and I've actually got this selected. So what you want to do is you want to search, right? So you go to Google Fonts, you type in Roboto. This is the best one for sure. This is what pretty much everyone uses, Roboto. And we're going to select light 300, regular 400, and bold 700. Now once you've got that, you can go over to the top right over here, and we can click on import. And from this at to this semicolon right here, we can just copy that. And above this, we'll just paste it right here like that. Then we take the CSS rules to specify families, and we'll paste that in the global styles. So that should change that. We'll bring this up just to make sure it looks like right. And yep, so that's actually changed. So you can't really see, but it has changed. Cool. Why is this doing that? Alright, there we go. That's looking good. So we've got that all set up. Now we can start smashing out some of the HTML, but first we'll set the body, and we're going to set the color to 252525. That's the default color. And then we're going to set the background color. We're not going to make it pure white because we don't like to use that when it comes to backgrounds. We're going to set it to F3. Now you probably can't notice that, but it's just slightly darker. And trust me, it's a lot easier on the eyes. Alright, let's start smashing out some of the HTML. So how are we going to structure this out? Now if we look at this, obviously, if you start to think critically about how we're going to obviously structure it, we have a nav and we have a main. That's really the only two containers at first glance. However, so we have a nav like this, right? And then we have a second container in here, and this is going to be called nav links. Okay, so we're going to have some icons, which are really cool, and we're going to have a button there. Then we also have the main, and we have a container wrapping these buttons. All right, so let's get into the HTML. So what are we going to start off with? Well, we're going to start off with a nav. We don't need a class for this because we're only going to have one nav. Let's have a H2 with the class of logo. Now this can either be your logo or your name. So I'll just put in your name, just like this. We'll go over to our one. Cool. Now what else do we need? Well, we need a div, so dot. And we're going to call this nav double underscore links. Open up that div like that. Then we're going to have an A. Now what are we going to name the class of the A tag? So we're going to call that nav link. So we have nav link as singular, and we have nav links as plural. Now inside the A tag, we're going to open that up, and we're going to actually use Font Awesome. Now you guys are probably wondering, how the heck do I get Font Awesome? Well, it's actually quite easy. You just type in Font Awesome CDN on Google, then click on this CDN.js website, And then what you're going to do is you're going to want to copy the link tag like this. Okay, so copy the link tag of the first one, come over to your CSS and just paste it like that. We'll Alt, Shift and F to auto format just so you can see it a bit easier. And now if we try and add a Font Awesome icon, so we go to fontawesome.com. Now if I'm going too fast, you can literally change the speed of the video to 0.75. Now you guys can see we are hiring, so there you go. We're actually we could maybe get a job at Font Awesome after this course. So we got to search for icons, and let's just say we want, well, what icons do we use here? So we used Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Now you can do whatever you want. Now if you do have an Instagram or a YouTube, then it's probably worthwhile, but more often than not, it's probably going to be more like an email icon, a GitHub icon, and a LinkedIn. So let's do that. We'll do email, email, LinkedIn, and GitHub. All right, so let's type in email, and we're going to filter to free. We don't need to pay for any fonts. It's a bit stupid. You can choose whichever envelope you want. I'm going to go with this one. You're going to click on the iClass, and then we're going to come over to the CSS, the HTML, open up the body of the A tag, and just paste that in just like that. Let's see if it works. Boom, we got that working. It's going to have these default styles, but don't worry about that. We'll change that in a second. So now we can actually copy and paste 3 different versions of this. So 1, 2, 3, and we'll copy one more, and we're going to have a button in between these, okay? So in between the 3rd and the 4th A tag, we're going to have a button, and it's going to be called button.nav_btn. And inside here, we're going to say hello. You can change the text to whatever you want. You guys are probably wondering what the heck is with this 4th one. I'll show you in a sec. It's going to have something to do with responsive design. Now, we're going to make this responsive for all formats. So on your tablet, it's going to look really good. On your mobile, it's going to look really good. And obviously on your desktop, it's going to look good. So if we have a look at this one right here, what we're doing is we're actually bringing up these menus. Okay, at a certain width of the page, we're bringing these 3 bars instead of the other stuff. So look, and then 850, I believe. So at 850 pixels, look at that. See? And that looks really, really clean. And we're actually changing the flex orientation, or the flex direction, from display flex or flex direction row to column. Watch. Bang. See? Otherwise it would be pushing the page out, and this is just centers it really nicely. So yeah, so little responsive tricks we're going to learn along the way as well. But let's get back into your portfolio. So we've got that, we've got the button in between, so just make sure all your code looks like this. I don't want to go too fast, but at the same time I don't want to go too slow either. So we'll get into some of the CSS now. So let's firstly style the nav. Now I like to try and work in semantic order. So the nav is obviously the parent, the overarching parent, and then everything else inside are children. So nav, what we're going to do is we're going to actually set 20 pixels of padding on the top and bottom and 40 pixels of padding on the left and right. Now this just gets it off the edges of the screen because we never want any content to touch those edges of the screen. Under the padding, we're going to have the margin 0 order, and this is just going to center the entire navigation bar. Now the color. So the color, what we wanted to use, now you can use whatever color you want. What color I used was this color right here, 00B0FF. I really like this blue color. It's really clean. Then we're going to display flex with DF. We're going to justify contents placed between. And what does that do? That pushes it aside. And then we're going to align item center to center the content on a vertical axis. So that's looking really good. Now we need to target this logo. We want it to make it a little bit bigger. So dot logo, that's what we called it in HTML. Font size, we're going to make the font size 28 pixels because we want it to be kind of present. Okay, not too in your face, but just a little bit. Now let's target the A tags. Now the A tags have got a lot of default styling, which are really weird. So what we're going to do is list style type. We're going to make that none. We're going to set the text decoration to none. We're going to set the color to inherit. Awesome. Now, what else do we want to do on the A tags? Well, let's change the font size because we want to make it a bit bigger. Font size to 30 pixels. That's looking really nice. And the transition, we're going to have a transition. Now you guys are going to see more about the transition in a second. So transition all 0.3 s ease. So that's 300 milliseconds or 0.3 of a second ease. Now what we do here, A, and then we use this colon and we hover Gotta open this up. Now in the hover state of the A tags, what do we want to do? Well, we want to change the color, and we're going to change it to this color, 95D9F8. And all this is just a lighter version of this. Now watch what happens when I hover over it. See? It's going that little bit lighter, and it just lets the user know that you're hovering over it without actually changing it. Because if you hover over it without changing it, let me just comment this out real quick. Hover over it without changing it, there's no effect there, as you guys can see. So no effect means it's not really visually very pleasing. So we're going to change that hover, and we're going to have that looking like that. So awesome. Now after the A, let's start targeting the nav double underscore links. And if you guys check right here, we have our div class nav links, and if we click on the opening tag of the div, we can see where it ends. And this container is wrapping all our links. Okay, so the nav is wrapping everything, and the easiest way, like I said in the other video, if you put borders on things, you can see how the containers are working much more simply. So we have the border red for that, and if we go nav links and we'll go border green, sorry, 1 pixel solid green, 1 pixel solid green, you can see. So we've got a container within a container, and this is something to get used to because this is how a lot of websites are going to operate. So what do we want to do with the nav links? Well, we're going to display flex. We pretty much display flex every container we'll ever use. We'll just auto format that quickly. And then we're going to align the item center to center it on the vertical axis. So we have the say hello. That's not looking too stupid now, even though the styles are pretty bad. Under here, we're going to set the width to 30%. So we want the width 30% regardless of the size. Now what this does, if you use percentages instead of pixels, this will make it much more responsive. Now I'll show you what I mean, right? So 30%, that's always going to be 30% of the width regardless of the screen size. Whereas if you hard code it to, let's say 100 pixels, okay, it's a bit small, 300 pixels, watch what happens. See, it's actually not changing. It's staying that same size regardless, and look, when you get to the small screens, it's taking up so much space. So when it comes to containers, if you can, try and use percentages. So we're going to change that back to 30%. Alright, so that's pretty much all the styling we're going to do that. We're actually going to change the justify content as well to justify content space around. So this just spreads them nice and evenly. Awesome. Now let's style the buttons. So this is, we're actually going to just type in button without the dot, and this is going to be default styling for every button, right? So we want to have a border of 2 pixels solid, and we're going to use that first color we used. So that's that button right there. We can actually get rid of these borders now because we don't need them. It's just to sort of get your head around some of the flex box. Okay, now padding, we want to have 10 pixels and 20 pixels left and right. So that's spreading that a bit. We're going to change the background color because for some reason the background color isn't quite right. So we change that to just transparent. Border radius, we want to have 20 pixels just to curve the edges a bit. What else do we want? We want the color of the text to be that blue color we had. We want the font size to be a bit bigger, 16 pixels we'll go with. And we want the cursor to be pointer. And what this does is when you hover over it, it'll have a pointer. So A's by default, I believe, have cursor pointer. That's why you don't need to add it. Buttons do not. And then we're going to have another transition. Now we want the transitions to be consistent. So we're going to make them all 0.3 of a second ease. And so what do we want to do on hover for these buttons? Well, what we want to do is we're going to target it, the hover state of it, background color. We're going to make this that color we had, 0B, 0F, or whatever it is. And then color, we're going to make it white, and watch. Really, really nice. Okay, really nice effect on that. Now, let's go ahead and change the CSS of, we're going to change the class name of one of these icons, and it's going to be this last one right here, and we're going to make the class menu instead of navlink, okay? So we're going to make the class menu and navlink. Menu, like that. Now, menu. What are we going to do with menu? We're actually going to display none. We don't want to see that right now. We only want to display that when we're at smaller screen sizes, okay? And that's the tricky little bit with the responsiveness. But trust me, it might seem a little bit confusing right now, but you'll get plenty of practice throughout this course, and yeah, this will seem like absolutely nothing soon. So now let's actually get some of the icons. So if we want to have, what do we say we want? We want a GitHub, right? So GitHub, I'm going to go with this one. Just click on that to copy it, and we'll paste that in here. What else do we want? We wanted LinkedIn. So we'll take the LinkedIn, copy that, paste that in there like that. Awesome. And then for this one, we want the bars. So just type in bars. And this just shows that you are having like a drop down menu or a little side menu. So bars for this one. Cool. And that's looking really, really clean, guys, now. So it looks a bit stupid on my screen with the your name thing, but when that's actually your name, it's going to look really, really nice. So awesome stuff. GitHub's looking good, LinkedIn's looking good, all the hover effects are working, the buttons are working, and that pretty much wraps up our navigation bar until the responsive side of things. So we don't need to worry about that anymore. Let's get into the main. So what we're going to do over here, we're going to have main. So we're going to copy that out by holding Control and slash, and it's going to say main. So I'm going to give you guys 5 seconds, or a little bit longer. I'm going to give you guys 10 seconds, have a little break, have a little read over the code, and just see what's going on. Alright, let's get into the main section now. So we're going to exit the nav. So after the nav, we want to have, whoops, don't want capital letters in any of our HTML besides the content, and we're going to say main. So now in the main, what we're going to do is we're going to have, let's have a look at how the final project looks. So it's actually not that complicated. There's like two sections of text, an image, and then 2 buttons, right? Alright, let's go into the main now on our project. Main h1.main _header, that's what we're going to call this, and we're going to say designer. Now you can write whatever you want, but I just like this text. Designer problem solver, and front end developer. Cool, that's looking good. Now after that, what do we want to do? Well, let's go under the main and we'll say h2.main _subheader. I design, what did I say? I don't even remember what I said. I'm just going to literally copy it. I design and code beautifully simple things. I have a passion for what I do. So this, like I said, this can be whatever you want, or a format that, so you can see it. That's looking good. So obviously we're going to do some styling on this in a second. Under the h2, we want to have an image. Now this is where we're going to go to a website called undraw.co. Now you can choose whatever image you want for this. I might do a slightly different one. So let's go with, you can search it whatever you want, right? And you can actually use the hex. So what you can do is you can copy the hex, right, like this. You can go to back to undraw and just paste that in, and then everything's that color. So it's super, super helpful. You know what? I'm gonna go with the female avatar. All right. Now you just hit download SVG for your projects like this. Now open up your downloads folder, and you're gonna want to say, we're gonna call this main IMG. We'll just call it main IMG. And what you do, just drag it straight into this like that. And now in the HTML, we can just go on the src main img.svg. It comes up, press enter. Boom, we've got it there just like that. And we're going to obviously add a class because we need to style it. And we'll call this main _img. Awesome. Now we won't worry about the CSS just yet. We'll finish the HTML and then we'll focus on the CSS. Okay. So under the image, what do we have? Well, we have a div called btns container. Okay. This is what's gonna wrap the buttons. Now button dot class. So button dot main _btn, and we're gonna say view my resume, just like that. Control L to select the whole line, Control C to copy, and then paste it right under just like that. And we're actually gonna hold Alt on, oh no, we're not gonna hold Alt. We're gonna just write a different class for these two ones. So resume, actually, do we even need a different class? I don't think we do. No, we don't. So we can just have that. We'll have that both those classes like that. And we'll say for this one, we will say view my projects. I believe we said in the other one, view my projects, view my resume. Yep, cool. So that's looking really good. And that pretty much wraps up the HTML for the entire project. Okay, now it's just all about CSS. So let's get into the main. And what are we doing first? Well, we need to style the main. The first thing I'm thinking of doing, if we have a border of 1 pixel solid red, right, and we look at this in a full size, it's not filling enough of the screen, okay? So what we're going to do to change that is we're actually going to set the height to 90 VH. So let's set the height, and that's 90 vertical height, and boom, that fills it out really, really nicely. And obviously it's still not centered, so how do we center something? Well, it's actually pretty easy. Display flex, df, JCC, ARC. This is looking weird as, well, you just got to change the flex direction back to column, because by default it is column, and then when it's flex, it brings it side by side. So these are things you will just pick up over time, and after this we just add some padding, 20 pixels, so nothing's touching the screen or the edge of the screen. Now this is looking really weird, it's straight under the image. That will be fixed, don't worry. Let's target the main image right now. Main _image. What are we going to do with this? Well, we're going to set the width to 20%. We don't want it massive. Margin top is going to be 80 pixels because we want to have a fair bit of space. And the transition on this is we're going to do the same thing, all 0.3 SEs. Okay, so there's going to be a transition, there's nothing there. Well, what we're going to have there, main image, on the hover, is we're going to have a transform, and this is going to scale it by 1.1. So it's going to make it a tiny little bit bigger, giving that nice little hover effect. Okay. Under the image, we're going to have the main header, main _ header, and font size 50 pixels. Cool. We need a text align center because that looks really silly. And what else are we going to do? Well, we're going to have some letter spacing. 1 pixels of letter spacing. Let's try 1.2 pixels of letter spacing. Let's try 2 pixels of letter spacing. We'll go with 2 pixels of letter spacing. We'll compare it in the projects at the end, and if we want to change it, we can do that. Now, like I said, you can do whatever you want with this project. It doesn't have to be the way I design it. You can completely control the design yourself. Now let's target the main _ subheader. And what are we going to do here? Well, what we need to do here is we're going to do something similar, but we're going to actually drop the font weight to 300. This is just going to make it not bold. Remember what we did? We had all those weights in the Roboto. This is what that font weight is. Okay. So this is how the project's looking right now. Font weight 300. We're going to set the font size 26 pixels. Set the margin top to 20 pixels. We're going to set the text align to center. We're going to set letter spacing. We'll do that 2 pixels. And we're going to do the margin bottom to 20 pixels. And this is my old project. This is what this project should look like. So that's what your project should look like. So don't be too alarmed if it wasn't, because I was on the wrong project. Now we're going to target the buttons container. And what do we need to do for this? Well, we need a display flex. And we need a margin top 80 pixels. Alright, so now it's starting to look nice. Then we're going to target the main BTN. And we need to add some margin. We're going to add 0 on the top and bottom. We don't need that. We need to space them out. We're going to have 20 pixels left and right. Then the width of the buttons, we're going to have 400 pixels. So this is pretty much it. Now it's all about responsiveness. So let's, under here, we'll go create a section for responsiveness. And we're actually going to get our first proper practice of responsive design. So media, then we're going to open the brackets and we're going to say max hyphen width. We're going to set that to 850 pixels. Then we're going to target the menu. This is where it's going to get interesting. So we're going to display this to block. We're going to make it important, because what we're going to do under here is we're going to make the nav _ BTN visibility hidden. We're going to make the nav link, or every nav link, visibility hidden. Now the difference between display none and visibility hidden, right? If you say this button right here, right? If I had this visibility hidden, this button on the right would still be where it is, because the button is technically still there, it's just invisible, okay? But if I had a display none, this would completely remove it off the page, and this button would be more centered. You get what I mean? So that's the difference between display none and visibility hidden. This is a common question for interviews, so if you can somehow remember it, it's really handy, but we will go over it in the interview stage of the course. Under here, BT ends double underscore container, well, we're going to set the flex direction for that to column. Okay, so flex direction column. Now, if you guys have a look, what's happening? Well, you guys can see right there, it's going on top of each other, and we need to still target the menu. For some reason, that menu is not displaying. Now, why? Let's have a look. So we're getting menu, right? Menu right here is the class of this A tag. This is the bars. Now, you might be thinking, why is this not working? Why is this menu class not working right now? What happens if we have another class, right, in front of the href? Class, oops, sorry, class, menu. Alright, well, for some reason now it's displaying. And I'm not sure why. It's displaying now, but it wasn't displaying before. So we'll go with that. It's working. Sometimes CSS can glitch out a little bit. Alright, let's go further with this. So obviously this is not looking good. So main double underscore btn, well, we're going to set the margin 20 pixels 0. So we're going to have it, we're going to flip it. So instead of having 20 pixels left and right, we're going to have a 20 pixels top and bottom and 0 on the left and right. Alright, now we're going to have one more media query, and this is just to handle with some bugs, because what happens, right, for some reason we want this pushed a bit more centered. Okay, we don't want it to be too far off the screen, so we're going to have max width 550 pixels. We're going to set nav link, and we're going to change this display to display none. Okay, display none. Now that's literally it for the project. Let's have a look how it's looking. We've got the nice nav links right here. Now if you want to actually link things up, right, if you want to link things up correctly, what you want to do is you want to come to your HTML and see where it says href. It's got these empty quotation marks. This is where you would link something, right? Let's say I wanted to link to this website right here. Let's see what happens if I do this. And make sure you add target blank to all of them. So we'll just quickly go hold Alt on the A's, target. Sorry, we don't want to add target blank for the menu, everything but the menu. So we'll go target underscore blank. This just opens it in a new tab, right? So let's go back to our portfolio, next portfolio, and let's see. We'll make it a bit smaller. We'll change the href to this one to, let's see what happens. So on the envelope, we should be opening up undraw, and we are. Okay, so that linking is working really nicely. So this could be, you can actually attach your resume. If you have a resume, just literally paste it into the folder like I did with the image, and just link that just like that. Super, super easy. That'll open up in Word or a PDF, whatever you want. Same with your GitHub. If you have a GitHub account, obviously you just want to go to GitHub and then just copy the URL, paste it in there. It's really, really easy stuff. So that's pretty much it for this section of the course, guys. Now what I want you guys to do, if you want, you can actually add a footer. So what I would do is obviously add a footer tag, open that up like that, and yeah, try and create a footer for yourself, complete by yourself. If you can't, it's not the end of the world. This portfolio still looks really, really good as is, as you guys can see. It's responsive on all formats. It looks really good on mobile. It looks really good on tablet. As you guys can see, it's really, really nice, and it's simplistic, and I really like this kind of portfolio. Now, this isn't the portfolio you're going to actually be applying for jobs for, but it is a good way to practice. So would highly recommend really going through the code, every bit of the code, and just trying to get your head around how it all looks. So if you want to full screen it and just see what does what, and another thing you can do is use that inspect tool and click on that little button, and you can see how everything is working, okay? And all the CSS properties are in the styles section down here. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next part of the course where we're going to start making money.